Good afternoon, morning, etc., depending on where you are. I am Raymond Camden. Nice to see you all here. If you're watching the recording, nice to have you watch me. Again, I'm Raymond Camden. My 9 to 5, I am an API evangelist for Foxit Software, doing a bunch of fun PDF API stuff. And in my spare time, I evangelize for a brand new language called BoxLang, which is why you're here. It has been incredibly fun to get involved in a new language that's starting fresh, taking like the best ideas from what's come before and just innovating. And it has just been crazy cool to be involved with this, and I'm really really happy to have had the chance to just have fun with this. So the idea for this particular session, and hopefully the ones that follow, is to live code building an application in BoxLang. Now, certainly, it's going to be a simple application. I'm hoping to get some basic stuff done today and maybe iterate over the next session or two and see how far we can get. But we're just want to kind of live code and build, and I definitely would love to hear any and all feedback you have in the comments. You could definitely, point out things you would do differently. That's, the sign of a good language framework, etc., is that there's many ways to skin the cat, so to speak. But we're gonna have some fun with this, I hope. And let's get started. So the application that I want to build is based on one that I've been using for a couple of years called Saffron. Saffron is a recipe website slash app. Like a lot of people during COVID, I decided that I was going to start baking and cooking more. And to be clear, I had uh, no no desire to be like any kind of professional chef or anything even close to that. Sometimes it was even stuff like taking a box cake and just making it because I had never done that before. And yeah, that it makes a cake. It tastes good. It may not be top level cooking, but I just started doing kind of simple stuff like that, and also like more advanced stuff. Like I did an apple pie once. I discovered Saffron early on. It's got a great website. It's got a great mobile app. And typically, when I'm cooking, I'll have my phone open to Saffron and I could see what's there. It's got a lot of cool features here. You could see I've got my cookbooks, so breakfast, desserts, meats, and breads. I tend to do a lot of breads, and you can go in here and see it's like a real nice, kind of simple layout. One of the cooler features that Saffron has that I'm definitely not even going to think about doing today, but I would love to do later, is that you could actually add a recipe by copying and pasting a URL. Now, if you read my blog or if you've ever Googled for a recipe, we all kind of know what happens, right? You get to a recipe that is 90% background story, and then way at the bottom, 10% recipe. So Saffron has this thing where you give it a URL, it gets rid of all that garbage and literally just gives you what you need, which is the recipe. And I know that I've done that multiple times. Yeah, I got one from TikTok. It doesn't work with TikTok yet, but it can read like allrecipes.com and stuff like that. So I've actually done some work of my own in doing the same type of thing of taking a messy web page that has a recipe and finding it. I've done that like 2 or 3 times now, and I actually have a plan this week to do it a fourth time. But I'm not going to worry about that. We're going to kind of keep it kind of simple. But my thinking is allow me to have recipes and cookbooks. Saffron has this idea of sections, which I'm not a fan of, and then just basically show the darn recipe, right? And I ingredients and steps. That's all I need, and a real kind of simple UI, because my thinking is that this will be on my phone, right? Uh, what I'm going to do for this application is to not have user authentication. Obviously, in a real web app, you would need a person to log on. That's something else that I want to kind of put off till next time. So we're just going to basically go in and start building the work um, to let you write and view recipes. Uh, for my tech stack, obviously, BoxLang, uh, using MySQL for the database, and I wanted to do everything with y'all, but I did go ahead and set up my database ahead of time just to make sure uh, I wasn't, screwing that particular part up. But my database right now is incredibly simple. It's got a cookbooks table with just a key and a name, and a set of recipes that include name, ingredients, steps, total time, a source URL in case I want to credit somebody, pointer back to the cookbook it belongs to, and just a notes field in case I could write stuff like, sometimes you need to cook it a bit longer to finish it, whatever. Um, Only thing interesting here I'll point out is that both ingredients and steps are using a MySQL JSON field. Normally, like in the old days, I would have had a related table of steps where I would have a foreign key back to the recipe. I'd have an order field, so it was in the right order. I My good buddy Scott Strohs, he's an evangelist for MySQL. He has shared many tips over the years he's been there, and he's talked a lot about the JSON support. And I thought, you know what, I'll just skip that and just use a JSON string in there. And it actually works really well. I don't plan on showing this today, he said, but you can literally write a query against embedded JSON strings in your column, which is freaking cool. So, for example, like I have on screen here, if I want to get recipes that had less than a tenth of a cup of sugar, it will actually look at that JSON string and parse it out. That to me is just kind of mind-boggling. But so I did this particular stack ahead of time. For my UI, I've been leaning on Shoelace a lot. It's got great web components. It has a good look to it, but it also has, I don't know, kind of cold, not kind of what I thought would be good for a recipe site. I like how Saffron is just kind of pleasant and soft. That is a design word that I can use. Um, but what I did again yesterday is I used Claude on the desktop and I actually asked it to build me a web theme. I've done that once or twice now, and the results are kind of interesting. I'll show you what it did. This is the template that it created, and I kind of dig it. I love the pastels. I love whatever these little bubbles are that are showing up in the background. Uh, and I just like the way it did the cookbook. So if we have time, I am going to take from this. I will say, it's kind of fun. Like when I had it spit out a theme, it actually had features that I had not planned on doing, like featured recipes. I don't think I will ever do that. But it also made a recipe page design for me. It included things like servings. I don't really care about that. I just know, but I love the ingredients part and that you could click to like as you gather them, whatever. And the directions I thought were very nice as well. Um, so if we have time, I will add this and we'll just see. One more feature that it made up for me that I thought was kind of cool was this easy, medium, hard type thing. And that's actually something I think I really, really kind of want because in some of my recipes, there are some that are just difficult, and that could be just my fault or whatever, versus some that are like super easy. And I wouldn't mind actually kind of having that tag right there to remind me, what's what. So if we have time, we'll try to put this theme in. The last thing I'll talk about my tech stack is that back when I used to do a lot of Cold Fusion work, I always used a framework for all my web applications. I was a big fan of Model Glue, but more towards the end, I was more of a user of Framework One. I would almost always reach for that when starting a new project because I love the organization help it gives. I love the performance benefits it could give as well. Gonna keep it simple for this. I definitely won't regret that, he said. I'll be honest. Every time I've said in tech, I won't regret this, every single time I've regretted it. I'm going to skip the framework. Another thing I would actually do, like for an application like this, I would maybe consider Vue.js. I wouldn't consider React because I'm not a fan. But I would consider it maybe a JavaScript framework and using BoxLang just to serve up my data. Again, keep it simple, stupid, right? Just let's build something kind of simple and small and think about ways that we can improve it. So that was a long, long intro. And also, my assumption is that most of you are familiar with Boxling. What I'm thinking is that, like, I'm definitely not going to explain every line. Like, if you've never seen Boxling before, when you see query execute and you see select star from recipes, you know, oh, this is talking to a database. Like, that's obvious. Instead, what I'm thinking is that I will try to highlight things where if if you've never used Cold Fusion, if you've never used BoxLang, that may be a surprise to you. And that's a good stopping point to see if we have any questions I need to answer. I see a lot of greetings, all very polite. Uh, is this your John? Is this your Contoso shoes or an actual site? I don't know. All right. So let's get started. And again, with that mindset of you're a developer, maybe you've never seen BoxLang. One of the things that it supports when working with a web application is the idea of one core controller file. And that will be application.bx. In BoxLang, a BXS file is a pure script file. A BXM file is a tags file that could also have script in it. And the BX files are your classes. So these are your core components and ways to have reusable functionality. Specifically for BoxLang, and let me just get my other demo up here for reference so I'm not typing everything by memory. All right, let me type this and then I'll speak a little bit more. So when running BoxLang as a web application, that's what I'm doing now. I'm running the BoxLang mini server. You can see it's on my localhost 8080 down there. When you make a request, it will automatically look for application.bx. And this again acts as a controller file for the application. So it can do things like set up event handlers. Is the application starting? Is it shutting down? Is the request starting? Is the request ending? It can enable things like session management. So I mentioned that I wasn't doing user management, but certainly I should at some point. Session management is how you would do that. You turn it on, and if you have handlers for that as well, for things like on session start, on session end, and so forth. You can also define application-wide variables. So that could be everything from, I want the contact email address to be a variable, so I can set it in one place and change it across the web app. You can do all of that within there. What I'm going to do for right now, again, just starting small, I'm giving my application a name, recipes. And what I want to do is I set up a test to make sure my database was working, to make sure BoxLang could see it. You could see an example here where I am reading all my credentials from the environment. So my host, port, username, password, etc. If you've seen my mouse go towards that .env file, just slap me because I don't want to click on that. And here I'm actually defining a data source connection on the fly to use for a quick test. And again, that's how I verified this work. But we can actually define it at the application level so it becomes a default value. And I'm basically going to copy most of this code. Again, picking up from the environment like so. And that should be all I need. Now, in theory, if I run text.bs and I don't specify a data source, it should just pick up on it automatically. And he said, in theory, he's going to test it. Yeah, I'm talking about myself in the third person again. I don't know why I do that. But I can now run this via the web app. Something else that BoxLang's web app does, and this mimics Cold Fusion, it mimics PHP, file-based routing. So in my folder, I have test.bxs. I'm running the BoxLang mini server. That means in my browser, I can go to slash text.bxs. So if you're coming at this from a like Python or Node experience, typically those frameworks will have a separate routes folder or a view folder, and you kind of programmatically set up, where your views and stuff are. Again, BoxLang makes this very, very simple. I plop the file name. If I call it foo, I can go to slash foo.bxs, bxm in my browser, and just see it work. So I've just added this. I set this up. I don't believe I need to restart my web app. But we're going to take a quick look here and just see what happens and run it. And it works. Of course it works. I had no doubt at all. So first thing ran great. I'm just going to end here. Thank you. Goodbye. Oh no, I got a few more minutes. All right, I'll do a little bit more. So I'm going to keep the test file around for a little bit longer, but let's actually add a home page, and I'll make it tag based because I'm going to do HTML stuff. Not caps, not. Let me do this real quick. I want a quick default HTML page, and I'm going to cheat here and copy it from Emmet like so, and say this is home. And just to confirm that everything is working fine, I'm going to drop a BoxLang dump tag in there and just see it spit out. And my browser, go back, reload, that index page should show up. Perfect. All right. So one of the first things I typically do in an application is define a basic template that all my application or most of my application will use. And basically, like everything you see on screen here, all this HTML, I don't want to repeat. So this is a trick that I did back in my Cold Fusion days, where I would have a custom tag that was essentially a layout file, and it would spit stuff on top and it would spit stuff on the bottom, and that was primarily it. In BoxLang, we don't call them custom tags, we call them components. But just from muscle memory, I'm making a folder called tags and making a file called layout.bxm. Now, we just released some good documentation on this. Too many windows. It is in here somewhere. Components. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so these docs just launched. Check it out for a deeper look. But what I'm basically going to do is write a component. I keep wanting to say custom tag. Write a component that can act as a wrapper. And even before I write this, what I'm going to do is show you an example of what I mean. So I'm going to call it the bx component, give it a template, tags layout.bxm, and end it like this, and basically put my stuff in the middle. So this allows me to skip writing a lot of boilerplate layout code. It allows me to just specify what's on the page. And then what I will do is go into my new component and basically say, hey, is this particular component operating in the opening mode? And that is going to be execution mode. I'm sorry, this tag, execution mode, which will either be start or end. So this is my header, and BXL, this is my footer. And our page is going to be all jacked up now because I have multiple things here, but let's just see how jacked up I made it. Reload. Yep, this is my header. It's the home page. This is my footer. So now I'm just going to yank all this stuff out of here. So I have a good, proper HTML page. Like so, and then take out this and put this here. And right now my footer is pretty basic, but that's okay. And now, in theory, I should have a simple web page with not much else going on it. There we go. This is my home page. So I'm going to add one thing real quick. I'm going to pass an attribute to my component, and we'll call it title and say my recipe site. And I'm going to go in here and support title being dynamic. I'm going to do that by wrapping this in VX output. This is basically the flag that I am outputting dynamic stuff. Put it in my variable. It will be under the attribute scope. And just in case you call this without a value, I will param this as attributes.title default, just an empty string. So if you don't pass the title value will be empty, but now this should say my recipe site. And hopefully if I reload, I can see it may be a little small for y'all up there, but you can see that I have that. So I could actually start trying to take in that template that Claude made, try to integrate that. I am not. I'm going to keep it simple for now. We can style this up a little bit later. But right now, I want to actually start with some code. And one of the things that I do sometimes is kind of write out what I want to happen. So get a list of cookbooks, show them here, duh. And that's not valid HTML, but that's fine. So anything that I want to do with my database, I could do it just on the page itself. I could take that nice little query execute thing. But instead, I'm going to create a class to just kind of package up all those particular methods, anything that's essentially working with my database, to make it a bit easier to organize and to do updates later. Like if for some reason I switch from my SQL to SQL Server, I only have one place to change that. I probably should use a folder. I want to call it components, but again, that's my Cold Fusion bag. I'll go ahead and say classes. Actually, not there, VS Code. Stop what you're doing. All right. I don't think classes is going to mess with anything naming wise. And I'm just going to make a file called recipes.bx. There's a part of my brain that's like, you should think more about your naming. No, I'm done with that. So we will make a class, and I'm going to add a method, public function method, for get cookbooks. And honestly, like looking at what Claude spit out for a home page, they do have cookbooks on top, and then they have recipes. Yeah, so that makes sense so far. I'm gonna get this method done, and then I'm gonna switch to Q&A just to see where we are. And I am going to just steal that little query execute there, because this was really simple. And I could imagine having attributes to filter cookbooks. Maybe I want to do particular sort order. You know what? I will order by name. Make sure that that is correct. Yep, cookbooks by name. I don't think I actually have any cookbooks, but that is okay. And this will give me what I want. And you know what? I am just going to return that puppy like so. There's one more change I think I want to make. I'm looking at some existing code just to see hold on one second. Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. Okay, so save this, and I want this particular class to be available to my application. So I didn't actually build this yet, but we're going to build in an on application start. This will run one time when the application boots up, and I'm going to say application dot, I'll call it recipe service equals new, and I don't think I want to use new. Again, I'm kind of cheating here, looking at, yes, I do. Actually, new classes dot recipes. Now, if I reload this should not do anything because the application's already started. Just making sure I didn't screw anything up. Invalid syntax. What did I do? One issue I tend to do a lot, is mess up my JavaScript and oh yeah, forgot the function keyword. Duh. Thank you. tend to mess up my JavaScript, my Python, my BoxLang, etc. It happens. Not the first time you'll see it. So let me see. I should need to restart the application, but for the heck of it, I am going to bx dump. Variable will be application.recipe service, recipe service, and I said get cookbooks. And again, this should not work because I haven't restarted, and that's fine. One little hack I do, and you know what? I'll copy it over here from an existing application. There is a way to kind of restart the application on the fly. Typically, I wouldn't do this in production. Let me get rid of all this. But there is a application stop command that kills the application. So what I do is I do a little URL hook where if I pass refresh in the URL in the query string, it's going to stop the application, redirect my request back, and it basically reload it. So you said that with complete confidence. Index.bxm refresh equals 1, and invalid syntax. Public function method get cookbooks. What did I do? Public function method. Oh, wow. I did not notice that at all. That's okay. How many of you in the room are like screaming at me? Ray, stop. Index.bxm refresh equals 1. I'm 100% sure it's going to work. Sweet. It did. Of course, I have no cookbooks now, but that's all right. All right, I didn't screw up too bad. Let me actually take a break here to look at some questions. Rahul, yes, he or she, sorry, is BoxLang similar to CoolFusion? There are definitely some things that have been copied from the CoolFusion world, many things that have been innovated and done better. I will say there is in the docs, I'm pretty darn sure a whole, if you're coming from CoolFusion, and I'm not going to spend too much time searching for this now, maybe someone in chat could share, but I definitely remember some documentation about, coming from CoolFusion. Hey, George, nice to see you here. And Brad, I see you already answered Rahul. Thank you. I should start from the bottom up. John, custom tags are awesome to capture presentation logic. Yes, that's like towards the end of my time working with CoolFusion, that's pretty much all I use those custom tags for. They do kind of not mimic, they kind of echo web components quite a bit in terms of being able to build reusable stuff. So I will come back to the questions, I promise. But like you could actually build a component, and I'll show one way of doing it called panel title equals my panel, and close it like so. Stuff here. So just like web components, where you can have the wrap and have the component handle things like outputting UI and interactions and stuff like that. Some people in the JavaScript world have shown ways of doing this on the server side. And of course, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, what's this been done for like 20 years or so? But that just kind of goes up the whole presentation logic. Yeah, Rod. Custom tag component is changed to confuse for season CF devs. Yeah, I know. I will try not to make that mistake again too much. Oh, Brad, this component execution mode. I guess somebody should we have oh yes, John, this component. Yeah, you know what? I agree with that. And if Brad doesn't do it, I'll file a ER for that. All right. Thank you, Brad, for sharing the migration guide. That's exactly what I was thinking about. Yes. One thing I will point out, John, his last question was code ending, longer names are less painful in modern IEs. BoxLang has a Visual Studio Code extension. I am using that. I have seen some issues personally with myself with that extension under Windows subsystem for Linux. I ran into a similar issue with Python today, so I'm almost considering leaving WSL and just using PowerShell native. But the BoxLang extension works perfectly when I'm in the kind of native C folder for Windows and not WSL. So yes. Uh, all right. Yeah, John, I left West W was sad, but agree. All right, so that's enough of that. So we currently don't have any cookbooks, but let's actually make this a little bit nicer. So you can, and I say I want to emphasize you can mix script and tags in the same file. So I could basically say cookbooks equals application dot recipe service dot get cookbooks, and then use that down here. Um, One of the practices that was in Cold Fusion for a very long time was pages like you see here, were 10 to 30 lines of code on top, but they had a name for it as well, like blot, big code on top or something, and then layout stuff at the bottom. And this is where frameworks can really help to kind of remove that and keep your view focused on output and layout and stuff, and kind of abstract out the logic of, for this particular request, I need to set up these variables. Yes, that would be better. I don't care. I'm gonna keep it simple for now and keep it like so. And let's actually handle the cookbooks. And what I will do is say bx if cookbooks. This is a query object, so I can look at the record count, and I'll say greater than equal 1. Show them here. I'll do this later, I promise. And then basically say bx else no cookbooks. Get to cooking, or something cute like that. And just reload everything. I do baby steps just to make sure I haven't screwed up too bad. And there we go. We have more of a human type response, not so much a developer. So again, kind of using this as my guide. They have featured recipes. I'm not going to do that. What I want to get into immediately is start building a recipe. So no matter what, there's always going to be, and this could be a nice button or something later. Again, I could use AI to kind of help me out. But I will say add recipe like this, and we will point it to recipe edit.bxm. Now, kind of forward thinking here, my plan is to have one template that handles working with recipes and make it intelligent enough such that you can go in there with a new recipe, like we're going to be doing, and also have it handle, oh, I'm editing a recipe, so I need to preload my data, let the user type, and save. But we will just link directly to that, and let's go ahead and add recipe edit.bxm. I'm going to copy from here the call to my layout, because again, all the files will have that. So by the way, the application.bx class, it has on request start. I could output a header there, and then an on request in, I could output a header there. I've always avoided doing that because there will typically be sometimes files that don't need a layout or do a different type of layout. And also, I like looking at this view and seeing, oh yes, this is using a particular layout. I can clearly see what this particular template is doing. So we will call this recipe edit. We can make this title a bit more dynamic later on if we're editing. So I could maybe say recipe edit dash basic bread, so I know which one I'm working on. And I'm going to need to get a recipe later. We're not editing quite yet, but I'm going to need to set up some variables. And you know what? I'm just going to leave this right now. And let's actually start working on that form. Love building forms. Have been doing it for 30 plus years now. And I see that typo down there. Component, component. There we go. Um, yes, building forms since 95 or so. And my first backend work was in Perl CGI script doing that. So, as a note to myself, what fields do I need? I know my recipes need a name, and I'm gonna look at my database. Needs name, ingredients, steps, total time. Some recipe sites will break down prep time and cook time and stuff like that. I don't care about that. Like a lot of the bread recipes will have a multi-hour wait while you're waiting for your stuff to rise. If I see like 5 hours on a bread recipe, I just know. Yeah, prep is not me working for 5 hours. It's me doing something for a little bit and then bringing it back. Source URL, that's optional. I'm not going to worry too much about that. Cookbook, IDFK, and then notes. So these are all the form stuff that I'm going to worry about. For cookbook, my plan is to actually have a drop down to let you pick a cookbook and a text field to let you just type in a new one. So I will need cookbooks. I'll just grab that code right there. And then I'm going to start writing my form. And this is going to be quite ugly, but I'm going to try to do it at least, you know, accessible if I could type right. And this will be name and then input type equals text, name equals name. We'll mark this as required. I would almost always do front-end validation before you submit, so it saves time. I'm not going to worry about that. And again, this form is not going to be terribly pretty, but that is all right. So ingredients and steps are going to be a little bit special. So let's just go on to total time, source URL, etc. So we will do total time. I'll be honest, I always forget if it's number or numeric, but I'm pretty sure it's number. And I also need an ID for that label to work. ID equals name. ID equals time. Love building forms, really do. Time, name equals time. And repeat for source URL. And like so. This will be source URL. There is a native type for URL, so I'll do basic validation to make sure it is correct. And make this source URL. And then let's go and get a little bit dynamic. Let's do the cookbook. Cookbooks, I should say, which will be combination dropdown and text field. So we will first drop in a select. ID equals cookbook. Name equals cookbook. And we are going to dynamically loop over each of those values from cookbook. So bx loop. I always forget this freaking syntax. Oh no, we will do bx output and then over the query of cookbooks, which will be empty for now. And if I spell it correctly, bx output, and that will be a option. The value will be the ID, and the label will be the name, which we will have none now, so that's all right. And this will be type equals text, ID equals new cookbook. Whew. A lot of typing. We are building a whole website in a little bit of time. Cookbook. All right. So I have name done. I have total time. I have cookbook. Don't have notes. Let's pause. Make sure I didn't screw anything up yet. There's my link for add recipe. And there you go, cookbook. So I should actually just automatically say or check. You know what? We'll just do a blank value so this it looks a little bit better. Like that. Value equals. And reload. Again, if I go a little bit too fast here, y'all can tell me. Uh, and yeah, I'm not going to worry about that now. I should also have like placeholders and stuff like that. I'll definitely do it for here to make it clear. New cookbook and just see how that looks. There we go. All right. I will hide that drop down of cookbooks later. Also, another good chance for me to pause and take a drink of water. And nothing for me. Thank you, Brad, for handling all those links. Uh, In League LLC, great comment. Boot up your app, and every time somebody doesn't work, ping everyone at Ortus on their Slack until it works. George, you asked about the BoxLang extension. I am, but like I said, it's a bit wonky on WSL, and I 100% blame WSL, not the BoxLang extension. I see somebody asking about an admin section similar to Cold Fusion, and Brad already answered to that. Uh, yep. And okay. Yep. HTML vibe coding. I praise. Yeah. Again, I don't like building forms, but what's nice is that at least for this application, this is a one-time thing, right? Like once we build it, we don't have to worry about it again. And then the rest of it's going to be like Vue. So I'm down to like 15 minutes. I'm going to try very hard to get this real close. So we are missing ingredient steps and notes. Let me do notes real quick. And actually, source URL is not required, and notes will not be required. Notes will be a text area. So label for notes, notes, notes. If I can type correctly, text area, ID equals notes, name equals notes, and it will be empty for now. All right, so just one last quick reload to make sure it didn't work. I make sure it did work. And the last thing is a input type equals submit. All right, then we're going to find some fun little issues. Save recipe. This is not going to work at all, and that's fine. I'm going to add a method equals post. The default is get, which you don't want. And the action will default to itself, which I'm fine with. And let's just see if this works. Reload, click save. Yeah, my requirements are working. And yep. Oh, actually, new cookbook that should not be required because you may be picking an existing one. That's fine. And hit save recipe and bam. So another aspect where a framework really helps is that what I have to do now is basically say, look in the form scope, get those values, do some validation. If good, add to the database, probably move them to back to the home page or something else. We'll figure that out later. And if not good, we're going to have to re-render the entire form so that the person can enter stuff. That's part of why I really like HTML form validation, where it could do most of that work for me. I would probably need to get a little bit fancy to handle a case where they don't pick a default cookbook and they don't enter new cookbook. But outside of that, I can rely on just the client side to do it for me. So I'm going to do a couple things here just to kind of get started and basically say if form key exists. Thank you, AI. You're a little bit off, but that's all right. Not new cookbook. We're just going to look for submitting the form. I will call this save. And basically, if form.save exists, we are saving and need to validate. So let me actually write that down. We are saving, so we need to validate. And for right now, I'm going to assume it's just not going to validate, which is fine. And I want this form then to support basically, as you type and modify, it remembers your value. So I am going to go in here and just looking at some existing code to kind of help me remember. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, all right. So we're going to use a param statement and form that name default equals blank. Now, right now, I'm defaulting my values to a blank value. This logic will need to be updated to handle existing editing of a recipe versus a brand new one. But again, that is most likely going to be next session's problem. I have time. I have source URL. Source URL and cookbook, as well as new cookbook. And I think that's it, except for notes. Yep, so we'll do notes. And I did the wrong thing there. Notes. Oh, nope, I did it twice. All right, notes. And then I need to actually use these below. So I will do value equals form.name. I'm also going to wrap this whole puppy in a BX output, except for that query down there. I'm going to worry about that in a second, or just end it right here and repeat it. So this should be enough to pick up on that value. Value equals form.time. Thank you, autocomplete. Fancy autocomplete. Value equals form.source URL. And let's just make sure those first three work. Again, I didn't do everything slow. Ray 1, 99 minutes, and HTTPS BoxLang.io. Save it. And it did. Boom. Yeah, I'm still not actually showing an error like, hey, you haven't finished this yet, but let's keep going for this. Let's reopen this back up here and do my angle bracelets right. Close it here. Wow, I am progressively typing worse. All right, that was form.notes. This was value equals form.new cookbook. And the Zoom interface is kind of blocking there. So there we go. That's why I couldn't see it. Stop that. All right. Oh, I moved it too low. There we go. All right. So now if I do my notes and if I do a cookbook, note 1, I typed that wrong. That's fine. CB1, hit submit. And there, I knew I saw an extra character in there. Where is it? Oh, bam, right there. All right. Almost there. The most complex aspect is going to be ingredients and steps. And this is where we have a couple of different options to consider. So I already mentioned that I'm saving it as a JSON string in the backend. So that's okay. The issues are going to be what UX and UI do we use on the front end. Now, one way to do that would be to have, for example, for steps, just an array or a list or set of text fields, and you type them in order, and bam, that just works. Ingredients would be a little bit more complex, right? Because an ingredient is a combination of what it is, so sugar, the quantity, 0.25, and then the unit of measurement, which could be cups, teaspoons, or tablespoons, or whatever. By the way, the abbreviation for teaspoon and tablespoon is incredibly similar, and you do not want to mess that up. So how are we going to do that from a user interface way? I am going to cheat a little bit and do something that, like, I think Ray Camden would be fine with. Casual users, maybe not quite as much, but I'm just going to use a text area and kind of require you to follow a format. Now, I would not do that for normal people, and we can improve upon this later, but for steps, it's just going to be a line break. If you have do X and then a blank line, do Y, that's going to be 2 steps. And I'm going to use a little bit of logic to parse that. For ingredients, I'm going to say, give me a number, 0.25, 5, space, a unit of measurement, cups, and then space the thing. So sugar, salt, whatever. And then, so I'm going to need to do a little bit of logic when I save this to transform that into JSON. So that is absolutely brittle. But this is version 1.0, and we can work to make this a little bit better coming up. So I'm going to add 2 more text areas. I'm going to just copy this P tag. And for me, name, time, source, cookbook, it would come after cookbook. Yeah, so we will put it here. And we will call this first ingredients. And just as a note to myself, and again, this is not user-friendly, we'll say number, what did I say? 5 cups, unit of measurement, and then item, the ingredient. That's a reminder to myself about what form to follow. So we are calling this ingredients and ingredients. Saw like so. Ingredients and something similar then for steps. And that change will be, let's make that capital, one thing at a time, steps. And my little hint will be line break or empty line between steps. Steps. I can spell 4-letter word, 5-letter words. All right, steps. Yeah. To me, I'll be honest with you, this is the part I enjoy the least, which is why one of the many reasons why I would typically use a framework to make that a little bit easier. But again, this is literally going to be the only form on the entire site until I have time to add some user management, which again, I really want to look at OAuth and BoxLang, so I can't get excited about future sessions until it's time. So we added steps and ingredients. So just to make sure this persists in ingredients, and we are very close to time, so we'll see. I'm going to restart, and that is an ugly as heck one. I will actually also make ingredients required and steps required. Right, so let me reload. And now in theory, if I save, yep, name 1 or name 2, give it a time. Yep, ingredients. So what did I say? 1 cup sugar, 1 tablespoon salt, etc. Again, this is not very user-friendly. Get the stuff, put in bowl, put in oven. There we go. And now if I hit submit, that should all reset. All right, so I'm down to 5 minutes. What I'm going to do, and what I've done in other sessions like this, is make some notes about where we're going to go next. And I will call this actually to do instead, because hopefully you enjoyed this and hopefully you can come back and see more. But the most immediate thing is save the new recipe. Well, actually, do error checking, because we never rely on server side. We never rely on client side error checking, because anyone could go in DevTools and mess it up. Save recipe. And then that's going to be a little bit complex because it has to handle creating a new cookbook as well. But we'll put that complexity in our nice class, so it's a little bit simpler to handle. Don't forget handling new cookbook. And then in theory, as soon as we do that, we go back to the homepage. We should have a cookbook show up immediately. And then we can start listing recipes underneath that as well. Eventually, we need then to build a recipe view so you can actually look at it. And then recipe edit, basically reuse what I did, support loading in existing value. All right. That I think we could definitely handle next time. For my third session, and I hope the Orders folks are fine with me just saying, hey, I'm doing 3 sessions on this. We need to get the UI in. Like I said, it's already done. And then if everything goes well, AI, awesome URL to clean recipe support. Oh, and of course, user management as well. And we'll do that last. I think the AI stuff will be more cool. All right, so hope y'all enjoyed that. And very good to do that Markdown. Yeah, version 1.0. That's it. And I'm down to 2 minutes. And I will just say thank you. The chat was great. Thank you. Thank you, Brad, for all those questions, for answering all those questions. Thank you, everybody else, for asking questions. As a presenter, I always appreciate it. You don't have to wait until next month. You can absolutely hit me up on Slack. This code base, I'm going to check into the BoxLang BX demos repository, and then we'll iterate next session. So I think that is it. I'm ending 1 minute there.